What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of the Eye Test Takes podcast. This is week 10, episode 10 of the podcast, recapping 4 games this week in the NFL season. The 4 games we have on the slate for this week are starting with Philadelphia versus New York Giants, New England versus the Baltimore Ravens, Arizona versus Buffalo Bills, and Minnesota versus Chicago. I'm going to jump right into this. I want to get this out of the way first of all, because this is just something I got to get off my chest. I've been waiting, honestly, 2 days for this, so I just got to get this out there. We're going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants game, and this is just going to be me getting some angst off, because this game was just an abomination. The Eagles are garbage. They are terrible. They're not even the best team in the NFC East at this point. I think the Giants actually are, which is just something that I could have never believed myself saying before the season or at any point during this season. And how did we get here? The Eagles just started out the season so terrible, and I just had to think that after this bye week, that they would turn it around. Maybe they get their heads straight. They get something, realigned in the offensive side of the ball, just because the offense has been so bad all season so far. And Doug Peterson manages to have his team come out after the bye and be more flat, with less effort, less disciplined, more penalties than we've seen all season in the game after the bye. The exact same, if not a more stale offense. It's just, what did you do during the bye week, Doug Peterson? And staff? I just don't understand how you can look at what happened in the first half of the season and think, let's just stay the course. Let's just continue to do the same things. At some point, it will happen where this team turns it around. No. Scrap the whole first half of the season. None of it was good. And you come out after the bye, second half of the season, and do the exact same game plan. The Eagles have zero identity. They have no clue what they are. They should be a run-first offense at this point, because every single time you give the ball to Miles Sanders, he rips off 5+ yards. He's averaging 5.5 yards per carry, and he's just super dynamic, and you're not getting him the ball enough. Where do I begin, really? I can start anywhere you want. Carson Wentz has not looked good this season. I'll be the first to admit it. But I think, especially after watching this game in particular, I think the bigger reason the Eagles stink this season is because of Doug Peterson and that coaching staff in general, rather than Carson Wentz playing terrible, because he has been. I think that literally just watch the games. The Eagles, even if you just watch a little bit of the all 22, just take a peek at some of these Eagles passing concepts. They are literally high school football plays. They're terrible. There was the one play that was basically for the game, right there at the end, fourth quarter. It's fourth down, and it's probably 4th and 10, it's 4th and long in general. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But it's for the game. And the passing concept that they come out with for the game was 2 receivers on the outside running straight go fade routes, basically. The 2 receivers on the inside are running 12-yard curl routes. And that was as creative as the play that you're going to run to possibly stay in this game and continue to go down the field and make the game a ball game again, just to even tie it or take the lead. That's as creative as it got. I don't understand, like I said, just what they did all bye week. They just continue to look at the same stuff and said it's going to work in the second half, and that doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, Wentz has been bad. I'm not going to make any excuses for that. It's been a rough season for him. But for the people that say that it's all Wentz, it's 100% Wentz, or it's even majority Wentz's fault that this season has gone this badly, you cannot have it both ways. Because those same people were saying, well, the Eagles are losing games or looking terrible in games because Wentz is making terrible decisions with the ball and he's turning the ball over multiple times and blah, 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 blah. And I realized that, yes, that has been the reason why we've been put in terrible positions all season. But at the same time, this game showed you that when Carson Wentz plays a conservative game and he doesn't take those chances and make some of those miraculous plays, but also make some of the bonehead plays, that like the Eagles aren't even in contention. They lost by 10 to the Giants by Wentz not turning the ball over and just taking what the defense gave him all game, basically. And yes, Wentz was still not the best in this game. He missed a few things here and there, but quarterbacks miss throws. But you can't have it both ways and say, well, it's his fault because they're turning over. Well, when Wentz plays conservative and they still lose by a large margin, and it didn't even seem like the Eagles were even close in this game for the most part, that should tell you all you need to know about the coaching and the play calling, the play designs, everything about the offense, the rhythm of the offense. There's none of it. It's just terrible from top to bottom. And then, of course, the Eagles' defense gets lit up. Jim Schwartz gets out-coached completely by Joe Judge in that offense. I mean, the fact that in the first matchup, you let Daniel Jones run for 80 yards and thank the Lord he stumbled over himself and the Eagles were able to win that game. Because honestly, after that, the momentum changed a little bit. If Daniel Jones runs that 80-yard touchdown in the first game, I don't think the Eagles even come back in that game. But they had the opportunity and it worked out in the first time. But then in this game, they come back and run the exact same read option play that you got torched on in the first game. And they score again. And they almost scored again later in the game with the exact same play again, but it got called back for a hold. That would have been a touchdown as well. He literally ran into the end zone. So I just don't know what you're teaching your defense. Like, I don't know if it's his scheme or the defensive players just have no clue what they're looking at, which is coaching as well. So Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, everybody from top to bottom is on the hot seat. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. I'll be the first one in line if somebody wants to start the Eric Bieniemy to the Eagles campaign. I mean, I appreciate the Super Bowl. I appreciate that magical season, but it has looked terrible since. I mean, like, I thought it was just injuries and stuff like I have made excuses for a couple years for some of the things the Eagles have gone through, and they have had injury problems here and there and stuff, but there's just no more excuses to be made for anybody. I'm still a little biased and still making some excuses for Carson Wentz, and maybe that's just me. But what I was able to see Carson Wentz do in 2017, I just think like it hasn't been the same since Frank Reich and John DeFilippo have left, and that's a lot of people's opinions at this point. And I think it's ringing more and more true as the seasons have gone on, and it just doesn't look good for the Eagles. So congratulations to the Giants. I mean, you completely outplayed the Eagles. I don't think it's that much of a feat at this point because they're just playing so freaking terrible. But yeah, the Giants actually look like a semi-decent team. They've played well the last few weeks in a row, actually. They just couldn't pull it out in a couple of them. So they're starting to gain some momentum. The craziest part is the Giants' rest of their season, their schedule is super, super tough. And they have to win some games that you just wouldn't expect them to win to even still take the division away from the Eagles. Because realistically, whoever wins the NFC East can win it with a 5-10 or 5-11 record, 6-10 record. If the Eagles win it, they can win it at 5-10-1. It's such an ugly division, and it's an abomination to watch, considering there's so many other good teams in the league, and somebody's going to miss the playoffs because of a terrible team in the NFC East is going to have to make the playoffs. I mean, it's football. It's the NFC East this year. It probably won't be like this forever, but for right now, it's really bad football all across the board for all those teams for the most part. All right, let's move into some teams that actually deserve some talk. I've spent way too much time on two terrible teams. So let's go to New England versus Baltimore. This game was super interesting to me, and I did not realize because I didn't get to watch this live. I actually just rewatched it yesterday, and I did not realize how much rain was going on during this game. It was crazy at points, and that's really what the game ended up coming down to was who could handle the elements better. And I think the Patriots were more ready for that game than the Ravens were in general. Basically, the game came down to a couple of plays. I'll say the New England trick play with Jacoby Myers taking the ball or taking the kind of backwards pass from Cam Newton and then chucking it to Rex Burkhead. That was a humongous momentum play for the Pats, and they took advantage of it. Jacoby Myers recruited as a quarterback from NC State when he was there. They kind of made him into a wide receiver while he was at NC State, and then obviously Bill Belichick knows all, so he basically was like, hey, I like this kid. He's a good receiver, but he also has, some passing ability, which he loves in all of his receivers for the most part. I mean, just ask Edelman, Welker, all those cats. They all can throw for whatever reason, but Bill Belichick loves that stuff. But yeah, that was a huge momentum swing for the Pats. That got them going. And actually, Baltimore had an opportunity to neutralize that momentum on the next possession by going straight down the field, because it was right before half that happened. And they went straight down the field. Lamar was looking good on this drive. And they really could, I think, with a field goal, even with just a field goal, if they wouldn't have even scored a touchdown here, the Baltimore Ravens, I should say, I think with a field goal, it would have neutralized that momentum, cut the lead a little bit, and they would have went to half with just saying, hey, we're within striking distance. This game's not out of reach at all. But Lamar throws an interception right there at the end of the half, and it kills all momentum once again, gives all momentum back to Patriots once again. And from there, it was pretty much just the second half with the rain just coming down harder than it did in the first half. It was basically, like I said, just who could handle the elements better. And it ended up being where the Baltimore Ravens had a couple snaps that were a little low, and Lamar Jackson couldn't haul it in, and it would scoot across the ground on that wet ground. And they had a couple drives stalled by stuff just like that. And the Patriots never actually did. So honestly, it was really as simple as that. It was just the Ravens had a couple of drives stalled by the weather, and the Patriots just kept chugging along. Damian Harris looks amazing for the Patriots. They really found somebody in him. He was good at Alabama. He wasn't like the best, guy to track when it comes to numbers from the combine and stuff, but man, he's just a good running back, solid contact balance. But he just trucked along. They kept with the run game. They knew it was going to be an ugly game because of the weather, so they just kept with the ground game. They made Cam pass when they needed to, and he made plays when he needed to. But yeah, it was kind of just an ugly game. That last drive that the Ravens had, it was ridiculous. Like, it was rain. I've never seen rain affect the cameras on the TV copy more than I've seen like in that game. That was crazy. You could barely see the players because of how hard it was raining. And you can only imagine what it looked like on the field for the players. So that was such a wild game. Pats win. They're still hanging around, and I still think if they get in the playoffs, they're going to be a pain in the ass for somebody. Just because Bill Belichick's great, Cam Newton is still a playmaker, and if they just get a little bit more playmaking from their like skill position players, and they figure out a way to kind of get some more people involved, that offense is going to be fine, and that defense, once it gets a little bit healthier with Stephon Gilmore coming back, they're going to be just fine. All right, so let's go to the next game. Obviously, this was the best game of the weekend, mostly just because of the last 3 minutes of the game. This was Arizona versus Buffalo. Man, what a game. It was actually, when I watched it back, because I was able to watch a little bit of it live, but then I wasn't able to finish it, which is disappointing not to be able to see that D-Hop catch live, but it's okay. But watching it back, it was kind of a sloppy, ugly, like there was zero. It didn't seem like there was much rhythm in the game. It was kind of hard to watch a little bit. I mean, obviously there were great plays being made by both offenses, and so that was fun to watch. But it was still a weird game. And it really, until, like I said, the last 3 minutes there where stuff just got wild. Basically, the first half was just a game of field goals. In particular, Tyler Bass, the kicker. I know you're watching this podcast because you want me to talk about kickers in this on this podcast. So sorry about that, but I'm going to talk about kickers right now because Tyler Bass was balling. This dude he set his own field goal record 3 different times in the game. I'm pretty sure it was like a 54 to start the game. Then he went to a 56, and then he had to kick a 58 and nailed every single one of them. And that's what gave Buffalo the lead basically going into the halftime. It was wild. I mean, Zane Gonzalez was knocking in kicks as well. Like both kickers, it was like almost like a kicker's duel. It was weird. But that's kind of why I was leaning towards it. It's just not a great game to watch, especially in the first half. And they turned it up in the second half for sure. It's just a lot of field goals. Something to point out here, Kyler Murray, I mean, I've, bragged on him pretty much all season long. But Kyler Murray is the ultimate eraser. And what I mean by that is if the play breaks down, if you're in a big third down, and you got to make something happen, he's going to make something happen. If it's with his legs, his arm, he's just so clutch in those moments. I mean, he doesn't make every single play. It's impossible to do so, but it's like 80% of the time this dude's going to make something crazy happen and keep the drive going. Like there's so many times where he bails his own offense out, and you just don't even really realize it, especially watching it live, until you kind of hone it in and say what's really going on in this game. I mean, you can tell Kyler he makes the offense operate the way it should because he's so special. And then of course, basically everybody knows how this game ended. And what's really getting lost in the spectacular ending to the game is the fact that the Buffalo Bills were good enough to win this game. They did everything they could have to win this game. And Josh Allen looked great on that last drive. Cole Beasley was absolutely shredding the Cardinals defense. That dude's so good. Like it's funny. Like the one-handed catch he had on the sideline was just absolutely ridiculous. But he was giving the Cardinals defense trouble all day. But that last drive, Josh Allen looked good, and then Stephon Diggs, that's why you trade for that guy. That's why you trade a first-round pick. It doesn't matter. You go get your young quarterback, a playmaker, unlike the Eagles have done so far. They just let Carson Wentz throw to freaking lawn chairs. But yeah, that's why you go get Stephon Diggs right there. He makes a huge play. He literally just beats Patrick Peterson with speed more than anything. It wasn't even like that great of a route necessarily. Josh Allen puts it right where he needs to, and Stephon Diggs makes a fantastic catch. And Buffalo goes up very late, obviously, in the game, and you think Buffalo's got the game. There it goes. And then obviously everybody knows what happened. Just D-Hop goes up in triple coverage. Kyler does an amazing job getting away from pressure in that play where he just basically jukes out 2 different dudes. Is able to get to the sideline there, flips his hips, and then just chucks it, and it's a seed, and it goes and is perfect. I mean, like, the ball placement couldn't have been better. And D-Hop just does what he does, just has his humongous hands, goes up, jumps. It was like a Michael Jordan commercial because his gloves are Jordan brand. He's a Jordan brand athlete, and the still picture of his hands just being slightly higher than everybody else's around him, and he's got the Jordan symbol on those gloves. It was just the most perfect marketing you could have asked for Jordan. I mean, I bet the next day the marketing people were like, oh my God, we don't even have to do anything today. Just put a little caption underneath that picture and we're good for the rest of the week. They probably went home early. But that was a wild game. DeAndre Hopkins is ridiculous. The Cardinals continue to look pretty good. They're taking first place in the NFC West, and Seattle continues to struggle. So you could see Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals may end up winning this division. And in my case, that would be very welcome, considering the fact that I have bet one of my buddies that the Arizona Cardinals will win that division. So I got a little bit of stake in this. But yeah, let's just move on to the next game. Next game I watched was Minnesota versus Chicago. There's not a whole lot to say about this game. I would say it was boring, but it was just an NFC North game. Sometimes they're going to be flamboyant. Sometimes they're going to be eh. But in this case, Chicago, they are literally the NFC North Eagles. Their offense is horrible. Their quarterback is inconsistent. It's just ironic that Nick Foles is quarterback of the Chicago Bears now. But it's almost like a mirror image. Like Matt Nagy and Doug Peterson are like blood brothers, and let's be the least creative we can possibly be with our passing concepts and trying to get people open. It's just ridiculous. But realistically, what my biggest takeaway from this game was the fact that Minnesota really should have won by 1 billion points. Like the fact that Chicago even hung around that long was stupid. And that's all on Gary Kubiak. Gary Kubiak is an idiot. I'm sorry. That, like, some people are like, oh, that's disrespectful. If you watch that game, he is ramming a square peg into a round hole. He's just like, I'm going to run Dalvin Cook into this giant wall of Chicago Bears humongous defenders until the day I die. That's basically what that game plan was. And literally, the thing is, anytime Kirk Cousins dropped back, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson were usually pretty open. So, and I understand having a balanced attack and wanting to run the ball to open up the pass and pass the ball to open up the run. But, dude, you take it to a next level when you just run Dalvin Cook into the dirt. And I knew a lot of people were super hyped on Dalvin Cook, and obviously he's very, very good, like top 2-3 running back in the league. I don't really have to think about that for a little bit. I don't know where exactly I'd put him. But he's definitely up there. But the last 2 weeks, they've gone against bottom 3 rush defenses in the Packers and the Lions. And then one of the other games that Dalvin Cook just went completely berserk in was the Seattle game. And Seattle, we all know, their defense is absolutely terrible too. So it's not like Dalvin Cook's been going crazy against good defenses. So I knew that he wasn't going to have a great game here, and it was going to be tough to run the ball. And Gary Kubiak was just like, I don't care. We're just going to run the ball with Dalvin Cook because he's our best player. And I don't disagree with the best player thing, but still, Thielen and Jefferson were wide open all the time, anytime they wanted it. Play action, they were running with 10 yards of separation a lot of times. I think what really happened was the one pass where it was a pretty close encounter there with Thielen and a defender. Kirk Cousins tried to squeeze it in there, and Khalil Mack intercepted the ball because it got tipped off of Thielen's hands. And I think from then on, Kubiak was just like, I'm going to be super ultra conservative. We're not turning the ball over ever again. So we're just going to put the ball in Dalvin Cook's hands and hope he can win us the game, basically. But anytime Minnesota wanted to get into the red zone and score, it was Thielen or Jefferson. Thielen scored 2 touchdowns, but I could bet you Jefferson was open on a lot of those concepts. But yeah, I just think Kubiak should really look into making it a little bit more balanced with throwing the ball some more to Thielen and Jefferson, because they're 2 studs, man. I'm jealous of that tandem right there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's recapping the 4 games I watched for Week 10. I appreciate everybody listening. Follow us at iTestTakes on Twitter, on Instagram at iTestTakes, and on TikTok as well. Everybody have a good rest of your week, and I look forward to recapping Week 11. We'll see you next time. See ya.